I caught my husband kissing his assistant against his company SUV on our 10th anniversary, right under the reserved parking sign with his name on it. For a second, I thought my brain had made a mistake. Maybe grief did that before it even arrived. Maybe it threw a curtain over the truth and begged you to look away. I sat there behind the wheel of my white Audi, in the visitor lane outside Eldonteca's glass headquarters in downtown Chicago, holding a gift bag with a silver watch inside it. Watching the man I had loved for 10 years press his mouth against another woman like he had been starving for her. His name was Mark Bennett, Chief Financial Officer, proud owner of custom navy suits, expensive cufflinks, and the kind off-voice people trusted in conference rooms. He had built a career on appearing calm. He could explain a financial disaster to investors and make it sound like a weather delay. He could smile through a bored dinner while quietly killing a budget. He could charm a waiter, a CEO, and my mother in the same 5 minutes. And apparently, he could kiss his 27-year-old executive assistant, Rachel Vale, in the company parking garage while his wife sat 15 feet away wearing the emerald dress he once said made her look too visible. I had bought that dress for the anniversary dinner he forgot to be excited about. We had reservations at a steakhouse by the river, the one with the private booths and the ridiculous truffle mashed potatoes he pretended to hate but always finished. I had spent 3 weeks planning the evening because planning was what I did for a living. I built corporate galas, charity fundraisers, investor receptions, luxury weddings, product launches, and private dinners where people who despised each other toasted to partnership under perfect lighting. I knew how to make a disaster look elegant. But nothing had prepared me for the sight of Mark's hand sliding around Rachel's waist. She wore a cream blouse and a pencil skirt that looked too expensive for an assistant's salary. Her hair was loose, glossy, arranged to fall over one shoulder like she had stepped out of a perfume ad. His company SUV blocked most of their bodies, but not enough. I saw her fingers hooked behind his neck. I saw the way he smiled when he pulled back, the small arrogant smile he used when thought he had won something. That smile did more damage than the kiss. The kiss was betrayal. The smile was proof he had enjoyed getting away with it. My first instinct was to scream. My second was to throw the watch through his windshield. My third was stranger, colder, and more useful. I reached for my phone. My hand did not shake. I opened the camera and recorded. 47 seconds. 47 seconds of Mark Bennett, married man, CFO, family values, donor, corporate ethics speaker, kissing his direct subordinate in the parking garage of his own company. 47 seconds of Rachel laughing softly against his mouth. 47 seconds of his hand moving low enough that no attorney in Illinois could call it a misunderstanding. Then I pressed the horn. Not a polite tap. Not the little beep you use when someone drifts at a green light. I slammed my palm down and held it there until the sound bounced off concrete and steel. Mark jerked away from Rachel so fast his elbow hit the SUV door. Rachel gasped and clutched her blouse like dignity had buttons. Mark turned, saw my car and his face emptied. Desire vanished. Panic took its seat. I lowered my window. Happy anniversary, I said. I see you started celebrating early. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Mark walked toward me with both hands up like I was a police officer holding a weapon. Claire, he said. Please. Don't do this here. I held up my phone. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. His eyes dropped to the screen. You recorded that? You posed beautifully. Rachel stepped forward, cheeks flushed. Mrs. Bennett, this isn't what it looks like. I looked at her. Rachel, I plan events for a living. I know the difference between a welcome hug and a parking garage affair. Mark leaned toward the window, lowering his voice. Claire, we need to talk privately. Why? So you can lie without witnesses? It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting our dinner reservation. This had parking, timing, and enthusiasm. His jaw tightened. That was the first moment I saw irritation behind the fear. He was embarrassed, yes. But he was also angry that I had interrupted the version of the world where he controlled the room. Give me the phone, he said. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like me. No, Claire. No, Rachel whispered. Mark, please do something. That almost made me smile. She looked at him like he was supposed to manage me, as if I were a scheduling conflict, a vendor dispute, a stain on his tie. I wondered what he had told her about me. Probably that I was emotional. Probably that our marriage had been over for years, probably that I lived in his house and spent his money, which was funny, considering the last 5 Aldentech galas had my fingerprints on every standing ovation he took credit for. Mark put his hand on my window. Do not make a scene, he said. I looked past him at the reserved sign on the wall. Mark Bennett, Chief Financial Officer. I smiled. Mark, the scene already happened. I just brought documentation. Then I reversed. He grabbed at the door handle, but I had already locked it. His palm smacked the glass as I backed out. Rachel stood behind him with both hands over her mouth. The visitor gate lifted, and I drove into Chicago traffic with my anniversary gift sliding across the passenger seat. The silver watch fell out of the bag at the first red light. The engraving caught the dashboard light. 10 years. Still choosing you. I stared at it until the light turned green and the driver behind me honked. Life has a sick sense of humor. By the time I reached our house in Lake Forest, I had stopped crying. That scared me more than the crying would have. Our house sat behind iron gates and trimmed hedges, the kind of place people admired from the road and imagined happiness inside. Mark loved that house because it made him look established. I loved it once because I thought we were building something there. Now it looked like a stage set after the actors had gone home. I parked in the garage, carried the watch inside, and placed it on the kitchen island next to the marble bowl his mother had given us as a housewarming gift. Elaine Bennett had said the bowl was timeless, then added that she hoped my decorating taste would eventually mature enough to match it. I uploaded the video to 3 cloud drives. Then I emailed it to myself. Then I saved it to a flash drive and dropped the flash drive into a vase full of fake white orchids Elaine had also given us. Because if anyone deserved to guard evidence, it was those ugly flowers. My phone started vibrating before I opened the wine. Mark, Claire, answer me, Mark, it was not what you think. Mark, Rachel is crying. Mark, please don't ruin me career over one mistake. Mark, we can fix this. I poured myself a glass of the expensive red wine he saved for clients he wanted to impress. Then I typed back, I'm backing up the video. Don't worry, your good side is in frame. He called 6 times. I let each call ring. Then I opened my laptop. The Alden Tech Leadership Gala was 9 days away. It was the biggest event in the company's year, a 500-person evening at the Art Institute of Chicago with board members, investors, press, tech executives, and every person Mark had ever wanted to impress. The theme, selected by Mark himself, was Integrity in Motion. I stared at those words until I laughed. It started as a small laugh. Then it turned into something sharp and ugly and free. For 4 months, I had built that gala. I had negotiated venue access, designed the stage flow, hired the lighting team, rewritten executive remarks, coordinated security, and saved Mark from embarrassing himself with a speech that originally included the phrase moral liquidity. He had recommended my boutique agency for the contract, but not because he respected me. He liked that people complimented him for supporting his wife. He liked being seen as the powerful husband who let his wife have a charming little business. Hella keyed my work when it made him look generous. That night, I opened the master run of show and added one line after Mark's keynote. Special presentation, Integrity in Motion. Duration, 47 seconds. I did not hit save immediately. I stared at it. Then I remembered Rachel's fingers behind his neck. I remembered Mark telling me last month that the emerald dress was a little loud for your age. I remembered Elaine Bennett smiling over Thanksgiving dinner while telling me that women who wanted too much attention usually had weak marriages. I remembered every time Mark introduced me as the creative one in a tone that made creativity sound like a pet trick. I hit save. The garage door opened 20 minutes later. Mark came in carrying 24 roses still wrapped in plastic, the grocery store sticker stuck to the corner like a confession. He looked expensive and ruined. His tie was loosened. His hair, usually perfect, had fallen across his forehead. Heises went straight to my phone on the counter. I was sitting barefoot on a kitchen stool eating takeout noodles from a carton, still in the emerald dress, with the wine bottle next to my elbow. He put the roses down carefully. Can we talk like adults? He asked. I looked at flowers. You bought apology roses from the grocery store on the way home from kissing your assistant? It was the only place still open. That's what makes it poetic. His nostrils flared. Claire, I am trying. No, Mark. Trying would have been not putting your tongue in Rachel's mouth on our anniversary. He shut Heises. I know you're hurt. That is a lazy sentence. I made a terrible mistake. Another lazy sentence. What do you want me to say? The truth. He went quiet, that was when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. There was more. If the kiss had been the whole story, he would have drowned me in details. He would have explained pressure, distance, loneliness, stress, alcohol, emotional confusion, anything. Mark loved a narrative. He could turn guilt into a PowerPoint. But he had nothing ready. Because he did not know which truth I had found. Claire, he said slowly, before this gets out of control, you need to understand what's at stake. I tilted my head. Your marriage? My career. Our reputation. The house. The life we built. I laughed so hard he winced. Our reputation? You kissed your assistant in a parking garage and somehow this is our scandal. He leaned on the island. If that video gets to the board, I could lose everything. Consequences are so inconvenient when they happen to men. His expression hardened. You're being emotional. There it was. The word he used whenever my feelings became evidence, emotional when I asked why he came home smelling like Rachel's perfume. Emotional when I objected to Elaine rearranging my kitchen cabinets. Emotional when I said his jokes about my business being cute were not jokes. Emotional when I told him I wanted to hire 2 full-time employees and he said, "Let's not pretend your little agency is a corporation." I set my chopsticks down. Say that again. He exhaled. I mean, you're upset, and you're not thinking strategically. No, Mark. I am thinking strategically. That is what should scare you. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. His face changed. Not surprise, fear. I slid off the stool and walked to the front door. Mark followed, whispering, "Claire, don't." I opened it. Elaine Bennett stood on my porch in a cream cashmere coat, pearls at her throat, hair sprayed into a perfect silver helmet. Behind her was Richard Vale, Alden Tech's general counsel. I had met him 3 times at company functions. He wore the neutral expression of a man paid to make ugly things sound procedural. Elaine smiled like she was arriving for brunch. "Claire, darling," she said. "Wait to handle this before you embarrass yourself." That was the cliff edge. And he had just realized my husband had not come home to apologize. He had come home with backup. Richard Vale sat at my dining room table without accepting water, wine, or shame. Elaine took the chair at the head of the table, which told you everything about Elaine. Mark stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, trying to look wounded instead of cornered. I sat across from Richard in the emerald dress, my bare feet tucked under me, my phone face down beside my hand. "Mrs. Bennett," Richard began, "you understand emotions are running high." I smiled. Apparently everyone got the same script tonight. He paused. "I am here informally. General counsels don't make house calls informally." Elaine clicked her tongue. "Claire, don't be difficult." I turned to her. "Your son cheated on me on our anniversary. Difficult seems generous." Her eyes chilled. "Marriages survive indiscretions when wives have dignity." That one landed. Not because I believed it. Because I suddenly understood how many women before me had been buried under that sentence. "Dignity," I said, "is not silence." "No," Elaine said. "Dignity is knowing the difference between a private wound and a public tantrum." Mark looked relieved. His mother had taken the wheel, like she always did when he had driven himself into a ditch. Richard opened a leather folder. "We are concerned about the existence of a recording made on Alden Tech property, involving an Alden Tech executive and an Alden Tech employee. There may be privacy and security implications." I stared at him. "Your concern is that I recorded my husband cheating?" "My concern is distribution. My concern is betrayal. The company would prefer to resolve this discreetly." I laughed under my breath. "The company knows?" Mark's jaw moved. Richard did not answer quickly enough. That was answer enough. I leaned back. "How long?" Elaine's posture stiffened. "How long what?" "How long has Alden Tech known Mark was sleeping with Rachel?" Richard closed the folder. "Mrs. Bennett, I am not here to discuss internal matters." "No, you're here to scream." "I'm here to prevent reputational harm." "To Mark?" "To all parties." It picked up my phone. Mark took one step forward. "Claire." I looked at him. "Sit down." He froze. Something about my voice surprised all 3 of them. Maybe it surprised me too. For years, I had softened myself inside this house. I made my anger neat. I made my disappointment digestible. I made my questions polite enough for Mark to dismiss. "Not tonight." "Richard," I said, "since you drove all the way to my home on my anniversary, let's stop pretending this is about company privacy. Did Mark tell you I have video?" "Yes." "Did he tell you he asked me to give him my phone?" Richard glanced at Mark. "Did I tell you he followed me to my car and grabbed the door?" Elaine snapped, "Oh please." He was upset. I turned the phone toward Richard and played the last 12 seconds of the video. Mark's hand on my window. Mark saying, "Do not make a scene." Mark pulling the handle. Richard's face remained still, but his eyes sharpened. That was when my phone buzzed. Maya Chen. Maya was my best friend, my former college roommate, and Alden Tech's director of compliance. She had the kind of calm that made guilty people sweat. She had introduced me to Mark 12 years earlier at a charity auction, which she had apologized for repeatedly since. Her text read, "Do not sign anything. Rachel filed an HR complaint saying you threatened her. Mark is claiming you stalked him at work. Also, I found weird vendor payments connected to your gala contract. Calm you hen safe." I read it twice. Then I looked at my husband. "You told HR I stalked you?" Mark's face went pale. Elaine said, "You showed up unexpectedly at his workplace and created a scene." I stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. "I showed up to surprise my husband for our 10th anniversary." Richard looked at Mark. "You didn't mention an HR complaint." Mark swallowed. I almost laughed again. They had not come as a united team. They had come as three people with overlapping lies. Maya texted again. There are charges on Mark's corporate card for hotel dinners with Rachel. 11 months. Not just an affair. Stay sharp. My heart didn't break this time. It clicked. Like a lock opening. Richard, I said, you should leave. He stood, Mrs. Bennett, no. You should leave because your CFO may have a workplace misconduct issue, a retaliation issue, and a misuse of company funds issue. If you stay in my dining room trying to intimidate his wife, you may become part of the history. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he buttoned his jacket. Mark, he said, I need to speak with you tomorrow morning. Mark's mouth opened. Richard left without shaking anyone's hand. Elaine stayed seated. You foolish girl, she said softly. I was 38 years old, but Elaine had always spoken to me like a child who had married above her station. Mark came from old North Shore money that had thinned over time but kept its manners polished. I came from a mother who ran a flower shop in Naperville and a father who fixed HVAC systems until his knees gave out. Elaine never said I was beneath them. She simply mentioned background often enough for the message to arrive. You think exposing him will make you powerful? She asked. No. I think telling the truth will make me free. Elaine smiled sadly, like I had disappointed her. Men like Mark are built for pressure. Women like you are built for support. You had a beautiful home, a respected husband, access to rooms your family could never enter. And because of one foolish kiss, you want to burn it down? I walked to the island and picked up the engraved watch. One foolish kiss? I placed it in front of Mark. 10 years. Still choosing you. That's what it says. His face changed. For the first time that night, guilt looked real on him. Then Elaine ruined it, don't be theatrical. I looked at her. Your son turned my marriage into a parking lot performance. I'm allowed staging. Mark whispered, Mom, stop. But Elaine was just getting started. You should be careful, Claire. Without Mark, what are you? A party planner with a mortgage you can't carry. The silence afterward was so clean it felt expensive. Mark did not defend me. That hurt more than I expected. I nodded slowly. Thank you, Elaine. For what? For saying out loud what he was too cowardly to admit. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, the flash drive from the fake orchids, and a small overnight bag. Mark blocked the hallway. Where are you going? To Maya's. You're not taking evidence to Maya. I'm taking myself wherever I want. Hellowered his voice. Claire, if you release that video, I will fight you on everything. The house, the accounts, your business. Everything. There it was. The real Mark. Not the apologetic husband. Not the ashamed cheater. The CFO making a threat in a cashmere sweater. I stepped close enough for him to smell the wine on my breath and the fury on my skin. You already started that fight. I just arrived prepared. He left. Maya lived in a condo overlooking the river, all glass walls and plants she claimed she did not have time to keep alive. She opened the door in sweatpants, took one look at my face, and hugged me so hard the air left my lungs. Then she made coffee at 11:40 p.m. because Maya believed sleep was for people not dealing with corporate crime. By 2 a.m., we had 4 laptops open across her dining table. The affair was not even the worst part. Mark had used his corporate card for dinners at 3 hotels, 2 weekend, client strategy retreats, jewelry purchases coded as exec conference hotels. He had also approved payments to a vendor called North Pier Experiences, which I did not recognize even though I knew every vendor attached to the Alden Tech Gala. Maya clicked through the invoices. North Pier billed $184,000 for production consulting, she said. I blinked. Production consulting? For my event? Yes. I never hired them. I know. She turned the laptop toward me. The approval chain showed Mark's signature. Then mine. Except it was not mine. My signature had been copied from the gala contract and pasted into vendor approvals. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. Hefferged me. Maya's mouth tightened. Or someone in finance did under his direction. Why? She scrolled down, because North Pier Experiences is registered to a shell company in Delaware. The beneficial owner is hidden, but the bank account receiving payments links to another account I've seen before. Whose? She looked at me. Rachel's brother. I stood and walked to the window because sitting still felt impossible. The river below reflected the city lights in broken gold. Somewhere down there, people were leaving bars, laughing, catching rides home, living in a world where anniversaries were still anniversaries and husbands were only disappointing in ordinary ways. Maya spoke gently. Claire, I don't think Mark recommended your agency because he wanted to support you. I closed my eyes, he wanted me near the gala. He wanted your name on the paperwork. So if the fake invoices were discovered, you would look involved. Or careless. I turned back. There it was. Twist 2, if my life had been a cheap show. My husband had not just cheated. He had used me as cover. For years, Mark had told me I was lucky he understood business. He reviewed my contracts. He helped with taxes. He advised me which clients to avoid. He told me to keep my agency small because growth was risky. I thought he was protecting me. He was keeping me manageable. Maya printed everything we had and locked copies in an encrypted folder. Then she handed me a blanket and told me to sleep. I didn't. At 6:15 a.m., my business bank app alerted me that a scheduled transfer had failed. At 6:16, I checked the joint account. Mark had moved $72,000 overnight. At 6:17, he texted, "We own." At 6:18, I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Nora Whitaker, and she had the voice of a woman who had heard every male excuse and kept receipts for sport. By 9 a.m., Nora had filed emergency notices to protect marital assets. By 10:30, Maya had requested a formal compliance review. By noon, my phone was exploding with messages from unknown numbers, including one from Rachel. "Rachel, you don't know what you're doing. Mark said you're unstable. Leave me alone or I'll call the police." I stared at it and felt something dark and almost amused rise in me. "Me, please Ito. I have video." She did not reply. At 3 p.m., I received notice that Alden Tech had paused my gala contract pending internal review. That one hurt. Not because he offered the money, though the money mattered. Because the gala was mine. The stage design, the donor flow, the lighting cues, the honoree sequence, the press wall, the whole architecture of the night. Mark had mocked my work at home and praised it in public when it benefited him, now he was trying to take even that. Maya called 10 minutes later. "They're trying to separate you from the event." "Mark?" "Mark and Richard. But Daniel Price wants to meet you." Daniel Price was Alden Tech's CEO. I had worked with him for 5 years, mostly through Mark. Daniel was direct, polished, and very good at letting silence Ito the hard part. I had never known whether he liked me. But he respected competence, and competence had been the only language I was allowed to speak around powerful men. The meeting happened the next morning in a conference room on the 31st floor. Maya sat beside him. Nora joined by video. Daniel sat across from us with Margaret Lee, the board chair, and Richard Vale, who looked like he had aged since leaving my dining room. Mark was not there. That told me he was no longer controlling the room. Daniel began. "Claire, I'm sorry for what happened." I said nothing. He continued. "I also want to be clear. This company owes you a fair process, not more pressure." Richard shifted slightly. Margaret Lee, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and the kind of stare that could close a deal or end a career, tapped the folder in front of her. "Ms. Bennett. Did you approve North Pier Experiences as a vendor for the Leadership Gala?" "No. Did you sign these invoices?" "No. Did Mark Bennett ever tell you North Pier was being paid under your event budget?" "No. Did Rachel Vale have any operational role in your gala planning?" "No." She had no reason to touch my vendor files. Maya opened her laptop. Rachel accessed the vendor folder 14 times using Mark's admin credentials. Richard's head snapped up. "We don't have final authentication on that." Maya looked at him. "We have timestamps, IP logs, and badge access. Final enough to suspend access." Margaret turned to Daniel. Daniel leaned back. Then he looked at me. "There is one more thing you need to see." Maya's face changed. She did not know this part. Daniel slid a printed email across the table. It was from Mark to Richard, dated 3 weeks earlier. Subject: Gala Risk Containment. The email said, in careful corporate language, that my agency had become operationally unreliable, that my emotional involvement as a spouse created reputational exposure, and that if vendor irregularities emerged, Alden Tech should distance itself from Bennett events immediately. I read it once. Then again. The words blurred, not because I was crying, but because something inside me was trying to reject the scale of it. 3 weeks earlier, before I caught him with Rachel, Mark had already planned to frame me. He had kissed me goodbye that morning. He had asked me if I could pick up his dry cleaning. He had eaten the salmon I made for dinner and complained that it was overcooked. And he had already written the memo that would destroy my business. Nora's voice came through the speaker. "That email is evidence of premeditated scapegoating." Margaret looked at Richard. Richard looked like he wanted the floor to open. Daniel turned back to me. "Claire, I'm going to ask you something unusual. The gala is 8 days away. We can't cancel it, postpone it, or rebuild it under new leadership. I believe canceling sends the wrong message. I also believe the person who understands the event, the risk, and the truth best is sitting across from me." My pulse beat once, hard. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking you to take over the gala directly under my office. No Mark. No finance interference. Full authority over vendors, messaging, and production. We will pay your agency directly and separately from the compromised contract. Richard inhaled like he wanted to object. Margaret spoke before he could. The board supports this. I looked at Maya. She gave the smallest nod. Then Daniel said the sentence that changed the temperature of the room. And after the gala, I'd like to discuss creating a permanent executive role for strategic events and reputation management. You've been doing the work for years without the title. For years, I had wanted Mark to see me. The cruelty was realizing strangers had seen me more clearly than my husband ever had. I accepted. Mark found out 2 hours later. He called me 19 times. Then he texted, "You stole my company." I replied, "No. I found my name on forged invoices and took back my event." He texted, "You will regret humiliating me." I replied, "You should have thought of that before building a crime scene around Michael Ender." That night, Mark showed up at Maya's building. The doorman called first, thank God. I came down with Maya beside me and the lobby camera above us. Hell looked terrible. Unshaven. Angry. Smaller. "Claire," he said, "this has gone far enough." I crossed my arms. I agree. Stop committing new mistakes. His eyes flicked to Maya. "Can we speak alone?" "No," his voice dropped. "You don't understand what Rachel is capable of." That was new. Maya sharpened beside me. "What does that mean?" I asked. Mark rubbed his face. "She has emails. Texts. She's threatening to say I coerced her." "Did you?" "No, but he said it too fast." Maya asked, "Did you use your position to give her money through North Pier?" Mark stared at her. "Compliance is not your friend right now," she said. "Truth is cheaper." He laughed bitterly. "You think Claire is innocent? She loved the money, the house. The trips. She didn't ask questions because she liked being Mrs. Bennet." I felt that in my chest. Not because it was true. Because it was designed to hurt. "Mark," I said quietly, "you moved $72,000 out of our account, forged my signature, used me as a shield, and told HR I was unstable. Do not stand in a lobby and lecture me about questions." A couple waiting for the elevator turned to Luke. Mark noticed. His face tightened. "There's still a way to protect both of us," he said. "Both of us?" "Yes. We sign a joint statement. Marriage under stress. Private matter. You withdraw any accusations about forgery. I return the money. We separate quietly." Maya whispered, "Absolutely not." I didn't need her to tell me. "What about Rachel?" His mouth twisted. "Rachel is handled." Something about that sentence made my skin go cold. At 11:52 that night, Rachel called me. I almost didn't answer. But something in Mark's lobby warning stayed with me. Her voice, when she spoke, was not seductive or smug. It was terrified. "Claire, he told me you were trying to ruin my life," she said. "You helped him forge my signature." I didn't know what those files were at first. At first. Silence. Then she started crying. I had imagined Rachel as Aveline because I needed the story to be simple. Young assistant. Powerful married boss. Wife humiliated. But life rarely gives women clean enemies when men are building the room. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Rachel said. "I know what I did." But Mark said the vendor money was executive bonus routing. He said everyone did it. He said if I helped, he would get me promoted after the merger. "What merger?" Another silence. Then she said, "You don't know?" My throat tightened. "Know what?" "Alden Tech is about to announce a private acquisition offer. Mark has been moving information for months. North Pier isn't just about the gala. It's how he paid people off book." I gripped the phone. "Rachel, listen carefully. Do you have proof?" "Yes." "Why are you calling me?" "Because Mark just emailed me a non-disclosure agreement and said if I didn't sign by morning, he'll tell everyone I stole the money alone. And because I am 9 weeks pregnant." The room disappeared. Maya, sitting across from me, saw my face and stood. Rachel sobbed once. "I don't know if it's his. I don't even know if I want it Tobe. But he knows. And he told me if I made trouble, no one would hire me in Chicago again." That was the moment my revenge changed shape. Until then, part of me wanted Mark ruined because he had ruined me. But listening to Rachel cry on the other end of the phone, I understood something more frightening than betrayal. Mark had not loved either of us. He had used both of us differently. He used her ambition. He used my loyalty. He used his mother's protection. He used the company's trust. He used every room like a ladder and every person like a rung. "Rachel," I said, "send everything to Maya now." "Why would you help me?" "I'm not helping you escape consequences. I'm helping the truth survive, Mark." By morning, Rachel's files changed everything. There were emails. Calendar invites. Bank confirmations. Messages from Mark instructing her to access vendor folders using his credentials. Screenshots of him promising her a director title. A draft memo blaming me for erratic vendor management. A private spreadsheet listing payments disguised as event costs and executive consulting. And one voice memo. Mark's voice, clear and cold: if Claire gets loud, we frame her as unstable. She's emotional enough that people will believe it. I listened to it once. Then I listened again. Not because I needed to. Because the woman he described in that recording was the woman he had spent years trying to manufacture. Emotional. Unstable. Dependent. Decorative. Small. Maya sent the full packet to Margaret Lee at 7:30 a.m. At 9:05, the board called an emergency meeting. At 9:42, Mark was suspended pending investigation. At 10:11, my phone buzzed. Mark, what did you do? I stared at the message while standing in the ballroom of the Art Institute, surrounded by lighting rigs, floral mock-ups, stage renderings, and 8 days off impossible work. Then I typed, I stopped being useful to your lies. The gala went forward because powerful people hate canceling more than they hate scandal. By the time guests arrived, Alden Tech had issued a careful statement about an internal leadership review. Mark's name was not on the program. Rachel was on administrative leave and cooperating through counsel. Richard Vale had been removed from the investigation for conflict concerns. Elaine Bennett had called me 23 times, left 4 voicemails, and sent one handwritten note through a courier, which felt dramatic even for her. The note said, "A public woman is rarely a respected woman." I kept it. Not because it hurt me. Because it proved she had learned nothing. The evening of the gala, I stood backstage in a black satin gown with my headset clipped behind one ear, watching 500 guests move beneath the museum lights. The Art Institute after dark looked almost holy. Marble staircases. High ceilings. Security in tailored suits. Waiters carrying champagne through pockets of conversation. Investors smiling too carefully. Journalists pretending not to wait for blood. Maya stood beside me with a tablet. "You okay?" she asked. "No, good answer." I looked at the stage. "Is Daniel ready?" He rewrote his remarks 6 times. "Tell him version 4 was best." "Heck knows. He's pretending version 6 was his idea." I smiled for the first time in days. The gala theme was still integrity in motion, but I had changed the entire emotional spine of the night. Mark had wanted a vanity parade. A glossy celebration of executive leadership, strategic courage, and other phrases men used when congratulating themselves for surviving meetings. I built something sharper. The first video showed the people behind Aldentech's real work: engineers fixing product failures at midnight, customer service leads de-escalating furious clients, junior analysts catching errors no executive noticed, project managers rebuilding timelines after leadership changed direction 4 times and called it vision. No scandal. No gossip. Just truth. When Daniel walked on stage, the room quieted with the hungry stillness of people waiting to see how much he would admit. He looked out at them and said, "A company's integrity is not proven when the lights are flattering. It is proven when the room is uncomfortable." That line was mine. I watched it land. He continued. He did not name Mark. He did not name Rachel. He announced an independent review, a new ethics reporting structure, and a board-level committee for financial transparency. Then he did something Mark would have hated. He named the employees who had protected the company from the consequences of executive arrogance. Maya Chen. Standing ovation. The finance analysts who flagged irregularities. Standing ovation. The operations staff who rebuilt the gala under crisis. Standing ovation. Then Daniel turned slightly toward the wing where I stood. And Claire Bennett, whose professionalism under pressure saved not only this event, but the values this company claims to stand for. The room stood again. For 10 years, he had stood beside Mark while people applauded him for work I made possible. I had adjusted his tie, edited his speeches, remembered his mother's birthday, hosted his clients, softened his sharp edges, and swallowed his public compliments that always came wrapped in private contempt. That night, I did not stand beside him. I stood alone in the wings while 500 people turned toward me. And I let them see me. Then the first twist of the night arrived wearing pearls. Elaine Bennett walked into the backstage corridor 20 minutes before the final award. Security tried to stop her, but Elaine had spent her life treating boundaries as things staff misunderstood. She brushed past the young guard with asmal sharp enough to cut ribbon. "Claire," she said. Maya stepped in front of me. "You're not authorized backstage." Elaine ignored her. "You have made your point," she said to me. "Mark is suspended. His name is being dragged through every private conversation in this building. You got what you wanted." I took off my headset slowly. What I wanted was a faithful husband and a normal anniversary dinner. Her mouth tightened. "Do not act innocent. You are enjoying this." I looked through the curtain at the ballroom, where Daniel was speaking with Margaret Lee. "No. I'm surviving it well." "That seems to offend you." Elaine came closer. You think these people respect you? They are using you. Today you are the brave wife. Tomorrow you are the scandal woman. Mark can still recover if you stop. If I stop what? The investigation. The divorce filings. The leaks. I haven't leaked anything. But you could. Yes. That frightened her. She hit it badly. Elaine lowered her voice. There are things about your business you do not understand. I almost laughed. You mean the forged invoices? Her eyes flickered. Maya saw it too. Elaine knew. I felt the temperature in my body change. You knew, I said. Elaine looked away for half a second. It was enough. You knew Mark was using my company. I knew Myson was under pressure. You knew he forged my signature. I knew he was trying to protect the family. The family. Not me. Never me. I reached into my clutch and took out the note she had sent. A public woman is rarely a respected woman. I held it up. You wrote this because you thought shame still worked on me. Elaine's face hardened. I wrote it because you are turning private pain into theater. No, I said. Mark did that when he made my name part of his fraud. Maya had quietly turned on her phone recorder. I saw the red light reflected in the metal edge of her tablet. Elaine did not. Do you understand what you married into? Elaine snapped. Do you understand how many women would have handled this with grace? Mark's father had women. His grandfather had women. Men in powerful positions make mistakes. Smart wives protect the structure. I stared at her. There it was. The family constitution: cheat, hide, protect the structure. I said, and what do smart wives get? She lifted her chin. Security. I thought of my mother standing on swollen feet in her flower shop, teaching me how to wire roses for weddings she would never attend. I thought of my father wiping grease from his hands before hugging me so he would not stain my school uniform. I thought of every invoice I had chased, every client I had calmed, every room I had built from chaos while Mark called my work pretty. Security is not the same as respect, I said. Elaine smiled with real pity. Respect doesn't pay for houses like yours. That house is going on the market. Her face cracked. Just a little. What? I filed this morning. You can't. I can. Nora says I'm entitled to moved and any marital assets hidden through shell accounts. Elaine's hand tightened around her purse. That was when I understood twist 3. It was not just Mark's money. Elaine's money was tangled in it too. Maya stepped closer. Mrs. Bennett, did you advise Mark to move marital assets? Elaine's eyes snapped to her. This is none of your concern. Maya held up her phone. It is now. Elaine left 2 minutes later, but not before telling me I had destroyed a family. She was wrong. I had found the wreckage. During the final award, Nora texted me. Emergency disclosure came through. Mark's private account received transfers from a Bennett family trust. Some funds moved into North Pier. Elaine may be involved. I read it behind the stage curtain while the room applauded a product team from Denver. For a moment, I could not breathe. Not because I was surprised. Because betrayal has layers, and each one makes the past rearrange itself. Elaine had not just defended Mark because he was her son. She had protected him because his lies protected her money. The gala ended at 10:45 p.m. with a champagne toast and no public video of Mark kissing Rachel. People expected me to play it. I knew they did. I had heard whispers. I had seen his flick toward the screens. The betrayed wife with the evidence. The perfect viral humiliation. I did not play it. That would have made Mark the center again. Instead, I let his absence become louder than his face. At 11:20, Margaret Lee found me on the museum steps. You made a smart choice tonight, she said. Not playing the video? Yes. I wanted to. I know. I looked at the city, the traffic, the lake wind moving between buildings. I didn't spare him. I refused to shrink my work into revenge. Margaret nodded. That is why the board voted before dinner. I turned. Voted on what? She handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was an offer. Executive Vice President of Global Events and Brand Trust, full authority over corporate events, public reputation strategy, crisis staging, and internal recognition programming. Salary, more than Mark had ever told me a woman in my field could make. Equity, real. Reporting line, CEO and board committee. Start date, immediate. I read it 3 times because my brain did not trust good news anymore. Margaret said, we should have recognized your contribution years ago. That failure belongs to us. But I hope we can begin correctly now. I thought I would cry. Instead, I laughed. It came out soft and broken and alive. Maya hugged me so hard my envelope bent. By midnight, Mark knew. He waited for me outside Maya's building, sitting on the low stone wall near the entrance, tie gone, jacket wrinkled, face gray under the streetlights. For a second, I saw the man I had married at 28. The charming analyst with big plans and nervous hands. The man who cried when my father died and held me on the kitchen floor. The man who once drove 3 hours to bring me soup during a snowstorm because I had the flu. Then he stood, and the memory disappeared. You took my job, he said. I walked toward the door. He moved in front of me. Maya said, move. He looked at me. You were my wife. I was. You were supposed to protect me. I did. For years, from bad speeches, bad dinners, bad impressions, bad decisions. I protected you so you mistook my loyalty for weakness. His eyes filled, but I no longer trusted tears from men who calculated timing. They're going to fire me, he said, yes. The board is sending everything to outside counsel. Yes. Rachel turned it in me. No. Rachel finally turned toward the truth. Different direction. His mouth twisted, you're defending her now? I'm not defending her. I'm refusing to let you use her as your only trash can. That hit him. Good. He lowered his voice. The baby might be mine. I know. He looked startled. Then ashamed. Then angry again, because shame never lived long in Mark before it searched for someone else to punish. You're enjoying this, he said. Your mother said the same thing. Do you know what people will say about you? That you waited for a scandal to climb. That you used Eurospan's affair to get a title. I looked at him and felt the last small thread snap. Mark, people have been taking my work and attaching men's names to it for 10 years. If the truth finally puts my name where it belongs, that is not climbing. That is correction. He stared at me. For once, he had no answer. Nora moved fast over the next 2 weeks. The emergency asset order froze transfers from our joint accounts, the house was listed. Mark's private account became a document trail instead of a hiding place. The Bennett Family Trust, which Elaine had always spoken of like sacred architecture, became Exhibit C. Mark was fired 6 days after the gala. Not suspended. Fired. Alden Tekka's public statement was clean and bloodless: violation of executive conduct standards, misuse of corporate resources, failure to disclose conflicts, and conduct inconsistent with fiduciary duties. Behind closed doors, according to Maya, it was worse. Outside counsel found more vendor irregularities. North Pier was not Theonly Shell. Rachel's files opened a door, and the investigators found a hallway. Richard Vale resigned quietly. Rachel kept cooperating. She was not innocent, and she knew it. She lost her job, hired an attorney, and disappeared from social media. I did not comfort her. I did not hate her either. Some people enter your life as a wound and leave as evidence. Elaine tried one final attack through family. She invited me to lunch at the country club where she had once corrected my pronunciation of foie gras in front of 8 women who collected charity boards like jewelry. I went because Nora said people like Elaine often revealed more when they thought they were performing dominance. Elaine wore navy. I wore white. She hated that. You look pleased with yourself, she said before the waiter even poured water. You look expensive and tired. Her mouth tightened. I want to offer you a settlement. No, you want to offer me a leash with better leather. She opened a folder. $1 million. A confidentiality agreement. A non-disparagement clause. A waiver of claims connected to marital asset concealment, vendor fraud, and the Bennett Trust. I stared at the number. There was a time when $1 million would have stolen my voice. Not because I was greedy. Because money meant safety when you grew up watching your parents calculate dental appointments against utility bills. Elaine knew that. Mark knew that. They had always assumed my background was a button they could push. I closed the folder. No, Elaine blinked. Don't be emotional. I smiled. There's that family word. This is more money than your parents ever saw in their lives. I leaned forward. And yet they never taught me to sell my name back to the people who stole it. Her face flushed. You ungrateful little climber. There she is. You think Mark made you small? You were small when he found you. I should have been hurt. Maybe the old me would have been. But the old me had spent 10 years trying to earn kindness from people who considered kindness a favor. I picked up the folder and slid it back. Elaine, your son's mistake was thinking I needed him to enter powerful rooms. Your mistake was thinking I would be grateful to stand in the corner once I got there. She stood so quickly her chair knocked backward. Every woman at the next table turned. For the first time since I had known her, Elaine Bennett was the scene. I left her there. The divorce mediation happened 3 weeks later in a downtown office with gray carpet and bad coffee. Mark arrived with 2 attorneys and the hollow look of a man whose phone had stopped ringing. He had aged in a month. His hair was longer. His suit did not fit right. That gave me no joy, only perspective. Consequences look dramatic from a distance. Up close, they look like laundry not done, sleep not slept, and a person finally meeting the bill for who they chose to be. He did not bring Elaine. Progress, maybe. Or strategy. Nora placed the documents on the table. My terms were simple. The house would be sold. The hidden marital funds would be disclosed and divided. The $72,000 would be returned. My business would receive a written statement confirming I had no role in North Pier or any fraudulent vendor approvals. Mark would sign a non-disparagement agreement that specifically barred him from calling me unstable, vindictive, or professionally unreliable. He read that line and laughed bitterly. You really wrote those words? I repeated yours. His attorney whispered to him. Mark looked at me. Was there ever a moment when you wanted to save us? The room went still. I could have said no. It would have been cleaner. But the truth deserved better. Yes, I said. In the parking garage. In the kitchen. Even after Richard came. There were moments. But every time I looked for my husband, I found your defense strategy. His face crumpled. For once, no one rescued him. He signed. Not because he became noble. Because his attorneys understood documents better than pride. A month later, I stood inside the empty Lake Forest house. The furniture had been staged for buyers, which made it look more welcoming than it ever felt when we lived there. The marble bowl was gone. Elaine had requested it through Mark's attorney, which felt perfect. Let her have the bowl. Let her put fake fruit in it and call it heritage. I walked room to room alone. In the dining room, I remembered the first Thanksgiving I hosted, when Elaine corrected the gravy and Mark laughed because he thought it was easier than defending me. In the bedroom, I remembered nights waiting for him, telling myself ambition was lonely and powerful men came home late. In the kitchen, I remembered the roses and plastic. Then I took the wedding photo off the mantel. I did not smash it. I did not cry over it. I set it face down on the counter and left my keys beside it. When I opened the front door, Mark stood on the porch. For a second, neither of us spoke. He looked past me into the house. So this is it, he said. Yes. I heard about New York. I had accepted an offer to open Alden Tech's East Coast brand trust office. It was not escape. It was expansion. A corner office in Manhattan, a team of 12, a budget Mark would have once called impossible for event work. Yes, I said. I start in 2 weeks. He nodded. I got a call from a company in Dallas. That's good. It's not CFO. No, it's smaller. Most honest beginnings are. He looked at me then, really looked, maybe for the first time in years without measuring what I could give him. I'm sorry, he said. I waited for the sentence that usually followed. I'm sorry, but. I'm sorry you felt. I'm sorry this got out. I'm sorry things became public, but nothing came after it. Just sorry. That made it harder, not easier. Thank you, I said. He swallowed. Did you love me? The question was cruel in the way desperate questions can be. It asked me to comfort the person who had harmed me by confirming he had once been worthy of love. I gave him the truth anyway. Yes, Mark. I loved you so much. I mistook disappearing for devotion. His eyes shone. I don't know how to be without all of it. The title? He nodded. The money. The house. The version of everyone believed. I looked at him, and the anger inside me softened into something quieter. Not forgiveness. Recognition. You can start by becoming someone who does not need a woman to vanish so you can feel large. He looked down. I walked past him to my car. He did not stop me. The first event I led in New York was 62 days later, a global investor summit in a converted bank building downtown. 800 people. 4 stages. 3 live stream feeds. 26 executives who all thought their panel was the most important. It should have been chaos. It almost was. But I knew chaos. I knew how to light it, schedule it, rehearse it, and make it walk on stage in a clean suit. At 8:55 p.m., after the final guest left and the last microphone went dead, I stood alone in the empty hall. My name glowed in the production monitor. Claire Bennett, Executive Vice President, Global Events and Brand Trust. For years, Mark told me my gift was making other people shine. He was wrong. My gift was knowing where to point the light. I thought about the woman in the emerald dress sitting in the parking garage with a gift bag beside her. I wished I could reach back through time and touch her shoulder before the horn, before the video, before the threats, before the forged signature, before she learned how much of her life had been arranged around someone else's comfort. I would tell her she was not losing 10 years. She was collecting the final receipt. Mark thought the video was my revenge, Elaine thought the job title was my revenge. Rachel probably thought the investigation was my revenge. They were all wrong. My revenge was not the 47 seconds that exposed him. My revenge was every second after that when I refused to be written. It was walking into rooms with my own name. It was signing my freedom in black ink. It was selling the house that had mistaken silence for elegance. It was learning that a woman can be heartbroken and still be strategic, humiliated and still be powerful, betrayed and still be kind without becoming foolish. Sometimes a marriage does not end when someone cheats. Sometimes it ended years earlier, in every room where you made yourself smaller and called it peace. The cheating just turns on the lights.